With the Seattle Seahawks officially out of playoff contention, our coverage shifts over to the offseason here on Seahawks Today. And on today's program, we will begin our draft series by talking about potential draft targets for Seattle in this April's draft from Green Bay. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us here on the show today. Before we go any further in the program, we want you guys to like today's video if you would like the Seahawks to have a great offseason. So do your part. Smash that like button. Let's get at least 500 likes on today's video to set the right tone for the offseason going forward to get this thing started on the right note. Hit that like button. We'll get started with today's show. So here's how we're going to break this down for you, folks. Kind of twofold. And part one of this is based on players of team need that Seattle could be looking at for their selections. And then the other part of it is based on who could potentially be available when Seattle picks. If the draft were held today, the Seahawks' current draft pick would be 18th overall. And it seems, based on the tiebreaker situations, that more than likely Seattle is going to stay at that 18 spot. There would have to be some crazy stuff that occurs for that to change based on the outcomes of this upcoming week's games in Week 18 in the National Football League. But with that said, let's start with the team needs for Seattle, and they're kind of all over the place. The offensive tackle spot is a big one. The interior of the offensive line at both guard and center, the edge rusher position, inside linebacker, corner, defensive line, quarterback, tight end, and wide receiver. A lot that needs to be addressed here in the coming months ahead. So let's go ahead and get started with our draft targets now. Beginning at the offensive tackle position with Kelvin Banks Jr. from the University of Texas. Kelvin Banks has been fantastic. And I'll say this, he is arguably the best offensive tackle in this draft. Probably not likely that he would be available when Seattle were to pick, but who knows? Things could happen. Maybe he slips up. Maybe Seattle makes a move up potentially. But he would be the perfect pick of all players that are potentially on the board for Seattle. He is kind of the unicorn at the top of the list. He does need some work when it comes to run blocking, but he's been arguably the best pass blocker in all of college football this year at UT. And he's made quite the claim to fame in college football this year, winning the Outland, the Lombardi, the Jacobs blocking trophy, a unanimous All-American, a first-team All-SEC selection this past season as well, made an easy transition from the Big 12 to the Southeastern Conference this year, did an incredible job protecting Quinn Ewers throughout 2024, and his grades were awesome across the board this past season as well, with an offensive grade of 85, a pass block grade of 88.2, and a run block grade of 80.9. Kelvin Banks, the big name. He would be the home run pick if Seattle could find a way to bring him in. Next on our list is Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. He was phenomenal the other night for the Nittany Lions in their win in the Fiesta Bowl against Boise State. We had that watch party here for you on Tuesday when he just went off. And for me, I looked at Warren. He was the best football player on the field on Tuesday in that Fiesta Bowl. And he kind of reminds me of Brock Bowers 2.0. And if you recall, at this time last year, I was all over Brock Bowers. I told you that I thought Brock Bowers was going to be a superstar in the National Football League. And what do you know? He's already looking like one of the best tight ends in the league just in his rookie season, setting all these rookie records. The fact that we're having a similar conversation about Tyler Warren as we were to Brock Bowers last year says a lot about Tyler Warren and his abilities. Playing for Penn State, they are in the college football playoff semifinals. If you haven't got the chance to see him play yet, you will get the chance to do so in the Orange Bowl. He was given the Jack Mackey Award, as well as the Big Ten's Tight End of the Year selection, a first-team All-American, a first-team All-Big Ten selection. He's been able to do it all this past year for Penn State. And the thing that I watch about him that stands out in this Penn State offense, under offensive coordinator Andy Kolaniki, playing alongside Drew Aller, Tyler Warren, time and time again, does a terrific job of just finding ways to get open and attacking the middle of the field. And that's been a missing part of Seattle's offense this season, of not having that explosive tight end threat. And every top team in the NFL these days has to have an explosive tight end if they expect to compete for championships. And Seattle's lacking that, not getting what they would have hoped for out of Noah Fant this season. The numbers on Tyler Warren, over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 98 receptions. He has been fantastic here in 2024. So between those two individuals, which one would you rather draft? Kelvin Banks or Tyler Warren? Type KB for Kelvin Banks. Type TW for Tyler Warren. Weigh in the comments section. Let us know what you think. Today's show is sponsored by our friends at Tushy. I am a huge fan of Tushy, and you will be too, folks. At what point did we decide stashing a wet, dirty plunger in a plastic bag is not okay? For me, that was this January. Since switching to Tushy Bidet, I've cut my TP use by 80% and haven't clogged the toilet once. I consider that a big success, folks. I love Tushy. You know, I was hearing A.J. Hawk talk the other day saying that he's had to wipe 100 times before. And when I heard A.J. say that, I'm like, yeah, we can't be doing that, A.J. We got to get on the bidet train with Tushy. Tushy is the most modern bidet attachment that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and butt health for life. The Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity. People have made the switch to Tushy use up to 80% less toilet paper. No more clogged toilets. Save your money and your ass at the same time. Every Hello Tushy bidet comes with a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. Instantly improve your health from the bottom up for a limited time. Our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code CHAT. All right, let's talk about James Pearce Jr. now, the outside linebacker from Tennessee. I got the chance to see James Pearce Jr. firsthand when I went to the Tennessee-Oklahoma game back in September, and this guy just dominated at the line of scrimmage. He has a lot of speed he brings to the table, and his numbers, we'll show you those in a moment, were not great for the expectations, but he took on so many double teams throughout the season that I don't think it was inflictive of how well he actually did play this year. Played for the Tennessee Volunteers, 2-time first-team All-American selection, and right now he is the number one player, according to ESPN, in all of college football for 2024. The most talented player is James Pearce Jr. That's what he's thought to be. And here's what we talk about the numbers. Although he was a 2-time first-team All-SEC selection, if he would have been on like maybe a Georgia team where he wasn't taking on those double teams, his numbers would have been even better potentially, folks. 7.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 38 tackles. James Pearce Jr., I think, would be an excellent fit for Seattle's defense. Let's go back to the offensive tackle spot now. This is where we find Will Campbell, the offensive tackle out of LSU. And Will Campbell is somebody with a big frame, and he's very effective as well. This is a guy that's ready to jump in and be a day one starter immediately in the National Football League. A consensus All-American selection, a 2-time first-team All-SEC choice as well. And he won the Jacobs Blocking Trophy this past year as well. And his numbers, when you look at what he did this past year, according to PFF, really did a good job when it came to pass blocking with an 80.9 grade. Run blocking could use some work, 67.1. Offensive grade of 70.8 off of 866 snaps. But a guy that I feel very good about, Will Campbell, would be a good fit for what Seattle potentially needs at that offensive tackle spot. We go to the linebacker position now, and this is where we find Jalon Walker out of the University of Georgia. Seattle with a need at the linebacker position, that's obvious. And you look at a guy like Jalon Walker, this is somebody that just shoots out of a cannon. He is so explosive with what he brings to the position. He was the Butkus Award winner this past year, first-team All-American selection, second-team All-SEC. You're going to get the chance to see him play for the Georgia Bulldogs in the Sugar Bowl coming up here in just a bit. You may be watching the game as it's going on, potentially speaking. Keep an eye on Jalon Walker this season. 6.5 sacks, 58 tackles, 1 pass breakup as well. A very good football player and could be a good fit for Seattle there. Who is a player the Seahawks should draft? We've gone over a few names. We got plenty more to get to here in a moment, but want to hear from you guys. Weigh in the comment section and let us know. Name a player Seattle should draft. Weigh in and let us know. For the best Seahawks coverage around, you got to subscribe to Seattle Seahawks Today, as we're certainly ramping things up throughout the offseason, talking draft, free agency, trades, and more. Right here on your one-stop shop for all things Seahawks. Just because the regular season is nearing an end doesn't mean we're going anywhere here on Seahawks Today. Subscribe now, youtube.com/Seahawks TV. You'll be glad you did. Let's continue on the defensive side of the ball now, and this is where we find Derrick Harmon, the defensive tackle from the University of Oregon. And the thing that I like about Harmon, he is a consistent disruptor. He continues to make plays and just be a menace for opposing offenses, play after play after play. Harmon began his career with Michigan State, transferred to Oregon this past season, was the second-team All-Big Ten selection. And the talk around the Oregon community about Harmon was that he got snubbed when it came to All-American consideration, that he should have been right up there among some of the best of the best. Mel Kiper has him as the number 14 overall player on his big board. And when we look at the numbers of what Harmon did this past season at the University of Oregon, he accounted for 45 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. He was really good consistently throughout the year for the Ducks. A big name to watch. College football fans know this guy very well. That is Walter Nolen, the defensive tackle from the University of Mississippi. Began his career at Texas A&M. They go through a coaching change, move on from Jimbo Fisher. He was the number 1 player in the transfer portal last year. Ends up at Ole Miss. Very active hands and very explosive at the point of attack. One of my favorite draft cliches, but it rings true when it comes to Walter Nolen. Nolen was a consensus All-American this year, a first-team All-SEC selection. He was a finalist for the Outland Trophy, and this is somebody that faced a lot of double teams as well. He was a player that opposing offensive lines had to key in on, and yet he still got his this past year with 6.5 total sacks and 2 pass breakups. He is going to be ready to go and play at a high level right away in the NFL. To the corner position. Not a great year when it comes to corners in this year's draft, but Seattle obviously has a need. They need some help beyond just Devin Witherspoon, and we find Shavon Revel Jr. from East Carolina. He is coming off an injury, so that is something to keep in mind, but he's got a very high football IQ, excellent instincts that he brings to the table. In 2023, he was an All-American Athletic Conference selection, second team. Mel Kiper has him as the number 16 overall player in his draft board this year. And we'll see, as he gets healthy, how much he can actually do. But he's got a chance to see his stock continue to rise over the next couple months as far as that goes. His numbers prior to the injury had 2 interceptions, 8 total tackles, and 2 pass breakups after playing in just 3 games in 2024. A couple more names to get to, but before we do, what is Seattle's biggest need in this year's draft? Weigh in. Let us know in the comments section what you think the biggest need for John Schneider and Mike Macdonald to address is. Next up, we find another offensive tackle. Josh Simmons from The Ohio State is on our list. And Simmons, this is somebody with excellent footwork and balance. He's not going to get moved around a whole lot. He really holds his own. Kiper has him as the number 17 overall player on his big board. He was a third-team All-Big Ten selection. He started at San Diego State, made the transition to Ohio State pretty seamlessly there, moving up to the Power 4 conferences. And pass blocking appears to be his strength. He had an 82 overall grade by PFF this past year. Run blocking needs a bit of work, a 68.7 grade, but overall his offensive grade solid at 74.4. The final name on our list is Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from the University of Michigan. Although Michigan didn't have the year they wanted, they have plenty of defensive talent in this year's draft, including Grant. He's got terrific athletic traits that he brings to the table. Very sound football player as far as that goes. Played for Michigan, third team All-American this past year, a two-time second-team All-Big Ten selection in 2023 and in 2024. And his numbers, not bad either, of what he was able to do this past year at Michigan as well, with 32 total tackles, 3 sacks, and 5 pass breakups, and came in big for Michigan in that game against Ohio State a few weeks ago. So there you have it. That's a look at our full list of draft targets here on today's show. Appreciate you guys joining us as we break down all those players. If you enjoyed today's show, you want a great offseason, like the video. We certainly appreciate it. I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.